It's back. My fourth book is now back from the editor. And wow. So how do you take editor's comments, criticisms, and critiques? Let's talk about that episode 88 of Horrible Writing.
That will never work. You can't push us. Seriously? Don't. Oh my God, that's really that's bad. You probably should find other hobbies. You ever learn how to spell? Stop. Be happy. Well, you don't bother. I've seen better people. Do you really want to? And my third grade, get up.
Welcome to Horrible Writing, the rawest, most candid, in-your-face writing show on the interwebs because none of us have time to suck. Let's do this. Oh, welcome, epic people of the Horrible Writing family. I hope your writing has been epic. I hope it's been amazing. And I hope it's been a fulfilling, rewarding journey that you've loved and has been everything that you've ever hoped it would be. Now that I've stroked your ego and made you feel like you are in a safe space, let me punch you in the back of the kidney. Well, is there a back of the kidney? It doesn't matter. You get the point. Kidney punch. So, we're interesting creatures, aren't we, writers? Like, we believe in ourselves so much that we create fiction, nonfiction, memoir, poetry. I'm talking to all of you. But even those of you who do, let's just pick on memoirists, shall we? They're telling a story. They're telling their story often, the story of their family, of themselves very personally, very intimately. But they're doing so creatively. It's not just a recap of, I did this, then I did that, then I did this. And we have the audacity, all of us, not just memoirists, all of us have the audacity to believe that if, just if, we work on this thing, we give it to a few people to read, we do some tweaks, we do our homework, we look up a couple fancy words, we do our research. We've got such a compelling tale, made up though it is, that people around the world are going to want to read it, hear it in audio form. That's not necessarily wrong, right? We should be that confident, that brash sometimes. We have to. If we're not brash, we don't believe we have space. And as I've always told you, you do have space. Take it. So juxtapose that with the mind of the author receiving their manuscript back from the editor with their comments. And imagine opening that Word document. If you've never been through this, I want you to imagine this scenario. Put yourself back in high school if you have to. College, maybe. A boss's report. You see that file. You move your mouse over top of it. Your finger hovers over that left click button, knowing that as soon as you execute that double click, you're going to see all your mistakes laid bare. And the worst thing is, those mistakes are coming from someone else. They're highlighting them. So it's kind of like, being, not that I've ever done this, but you're in your house, you're having a good day. It was a great week of work. You're off work. I don't know. The kids are gone. The husband or the wife is out of the house. And you've just taken a wonderful bath. Everything's relaxed, and you're just dancing around the house naked. You're just in your glory, celebrating the fact that you're alive. only to find out that the window you were dancing in front of, the curtains were open, and like a troop of Christmas carolers had walked by. They're all staring aghast at all the blemishes on your body. That's what it feels like when you get that manuscript back from your editor. It really, you're standing in front of your editor naked, and they have accepted you and all your blemishes as you are. And they've told you, they see, and here's the beauty of it. It's all about mindset, right? So, okay, let's not get too pedantic or personal or defensive about this, because it's just a stupid metaphor that I made up on the fly. But if I'm standing naked in front of my editor and she points out everything that's wrong, these are things I can work on. All right. If I need to work my arms, which I do, I can do that. If I need to work on body fat, I need to run. As soon as the Achilles is healed, I need to start running again. I need to eat better, right? These are things I can do. Yes. I know there are things people cannot help. Please, I asked you to not take this seriously and just run with a metaphor. Now, in that spirit, that's what they're doing with your manuscript. So as a writer, don't go into submitting your manuscript to your editor with a mindset other than that, knowing that you're going to be standing in front of that editor naked for a month, 2 months, however long it takes them to do what they need to do. If you accept that, if you're okay with that, then there really isn't anything they can send back to you that's going to be harmful. So, those of you who are longtime listeners know that many moons ago, I had a podcast called Atheist Apocalypse. It was a satirical comedy, stupid comedy, where basically I just dealt with my frustrations with the world through fictional characters, picking on everybody, because I'm not a this or that duality. I'm more of a duality, triality, quadrality. I don't like being put in a box. I can be many things all at once. And from that show, I created a fictional area of the world known as the Tri-Counties, and I fell in love with it. So much so that another prominent fictional podcast had already come out, which inspired my show, and they started writing books. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. So I started writing what I thought was going to be a weird horror, humorous horror. And I didn't get through the first chapter, and I realized, no, this is going to be straight up horror. There's no weird humor in this. And The Scales was born. And I've been talking about The Scales on and off for a long time for those of you who've been listening to the show. Well, the time came, and I sent it off to my editor. Now, I've worked with Cindy for a long time. Not often, though. I wrote a couple episodes of another horror podcast that she works on. And in that experience, from the first story I submitted to them, that was in their second season, to the second story I submitted to them, which was in their third season, I realized how good of an editor she was. And I asked her, hey, would you ever do novel length? And of course, I was pleased when she said yes. And then, fast forward about a year, I said, hey, I'm going to have a book ready in the spring if you're still looking for editing work. And I was super doubly excited when she said, yep, I'm looking for editing work and here's my price. And I said, oh, hell yes, because I had that relationship with her. I had that experience with her. I knew what she was as an editor. Now, Those of you who are listening to this and you trust me, yes, you can ask me offline if you're part of the Horrible Writing Writer Support Group. If you're not, why haven't you joined us? But I will give you her name, or I will find out what genre you're doing. Then, depending on your answer, I will give you her name because I believe in Cindy and I believe in her talent. But here's the thing. I knew what I was getting with her. I knew I was going to be standing naked in front of her for 2 months, and she was going to pick up all the blemishes. And here's the thing. With that mindset, she's a great communicator. So she let me know a couple times, hey, for example, this is taking longer than I thought, but here's why. Here's what I want to do. She gave me some structural stuff, kind of as like an add-on. She's not going to do that for everybody, and she's not going to do it for me again. That was a one-time good deal. That really, I'm still going through her feedback as I record this episode, okay? So I've got it. It's kind of like what Beta Worlds does with theirs, where they give you big picture macro stuff, structural story stuff first. You read through that, you understand big picture what they're talking about, and then you dive in to the micro. You open that Word document and you see all the red lines of track changes everywhere. I'm still early in my read because Cindy's incredibly thorough. But I'm serious. The Scales is going to be my first novel that isn't associated with anything else. I've got Chasing the Demon. That's an adaptation from the first season of Subject Found, an audio drama. So I took that script and adapted it to a novel. I did the same thing with Rip. Rip will actually come out before The Scales. Same thing though. The dialogue, the story's already set. I'm just adapting it. 12 Deaths of Christmas was a 12 short story anthology. So this is it. The Scales is what I feel is my first real step into authordom, because this is a standalone story, my first one. And I've been working on it in between projects for a long time. And I had a lot of things I had to do with it. I sent it out to my beta readers. Their feedback was pretty consistent about characters. I did hard work scaling back / removing those characters before I sent it to Cindy, and Cindy still came back with, hey, this dude just doesn't work. Tell him bye-bye. She had critiques about my main character that I have been worried about from the beginning and tried to address. And she still picked up on those things. So this episode is about how to consume your editor comments. For those of you who've never been through it, definitely heed this advice. For those of you who have, maybe I'll say something that'll actually be helpful to you. First things first, when your editor sends your manuscript back, block off a few days of reading time, of that productive time, to go through their comments. Nothing else going on, no other obligations. The only thing you're going to do during this time is get through your editor's comments. Go through, do not stop reading. Don't stop to fix things. Don't stop to argue with them. Don't stop to question them. Read all the way through. With 12 Deaths of Christmas, I did that in 2 days. I had a different editor than I have for The Scales. And again, I knew what I was getting with Cindy. And I'm taking hers. I've had it for 4 days now. And I'm taking her edits little bit by little bit. It's not that I'm fragile. I mean, I have an artist's ego, so it does hurt. But it's not fragile. In fact, I actually don't disagree with her on a lot of things. There's one point of minutia that I'm not going to take her advice on. She was talking about the description of one of the characters very early on in the book, a prominent character who I gave a short paragraph of description about because I wanted to solidly set that up. And I don't agree with her on that I need to take it out. In fact, because one of her big picture comments was about characterization and being able to see some of the characters of whom he was one. So I'm going to look at it again and reassess it, but that description's not coming out because I need that moment to happen between the main character and him. But beyond that, I agree with everything else she's saying. I'm still taking it in bite-sized chunks because she's got me thinking about my process, about my gut reaction, and my editing process. So not only my writing process, but my editing process. And that gut reaction, what do I mean by gut reaction? So for example, only one of my beta readers had an issue. Well, two of them. I'm going to say two. Two of my beta readers had an issue with the main character. One said he didn't connect with her and thought she was a brat, but he admitted, I've got a personal issue with teenage girls who act like brats. So I probably am biased. And I love that, man. What more can you ask from your beta readers to not only go through an entire book for you, but when they go through it, they identify their own biases to your story. Those are people you embrace and you hook up and help whenever you can. Okay? Got it? Good. And another person didn't see her arc. And it was only one person out of this entire group. I don't disagree with her, but I don't fully agree with her. There is definitely an arc, but it's more subtle. It's one of the more subtle arcs I've ever done. But I did also go back to the main character after I got the beta reader's feedback, and I played with that character's arc. Now, what Cindy, my editor, is saying about the main character has me reflecting because it is from the very beginning one of those things that I worried about with this character. I'm not going to spoil or give anything away, but with this character, she is younger. She's a high school senior. I was a high school senior once. I no longer am. And this is not a slight on high school seniors. This book is not a young adult book. It can be, but it's not aimed at, written to that market. So my reader, because you do have to define who your reader is in your mind, that conceptual reader, as you're going through this, my reader is someone in their 30s or above who enjoys horror, who enjoys Leviathan-sized monsters, a mortgage, probably some college debt still, rent, whatever, They have these things, kids, small kids even maybe. So we're reading it, we're seeing it through her eyes, the eyes of an 18-year-old. And this is not an insult if you're 18 years old, but you won't realize this for a few years. Those of us who aren't 18 or even in our early 20s anymore, we already know this. You think you know everything at 18, and it's when you're about 28, 29, 30, 35, 40, you realize how much you don't know. And then you look back at those 18-year-olds with an eye of patience because they don't know. And I wrote that character to stay true to that. We're seeing our point of view is close third person in the head of an 18-year-old. So there is going to be inconsistencies. There's going to be combativeness, rebellion, the desire, the urge to break free from the shackles of parents, the things that 18-year-olds go through. But as the author, that's something I was worried about when I was writing first draft, third draft, seventh draft, 10th draft. Now, my editor has some great comments that are going to be very helpful as I take on this next round of editing. They will be. But for now, while I'm tackling her comments, it's something that's got me thinking. Thus, why I'm going bite-sized versus what I did with either Chasing the Demon or 12 Deaths of Christmas. I could consume those because a different editor has a different style and they're different books. I already set that expectation with Chasing the Demon that it's an adaptation from a podcast. I'm not rewriting it. I'm going to stay true to that audience that loved that season. So the same thing with Rip. The same thing with 12 Deaths being short stories, a whole bunch of different dynamics there. So, bite size it is. And I'll continue plugging along as the author, as the parent of that baby on those pages. This should be part of your strategic build. When you're writing a new book, when you're planning out a new book, you go through all of the normal things that you do. You're going to plot for this long. You're going to discovery write for this long. You're going to get alpha and beta readers for here, right? And then you're going to send it off. But don't overlook what you know about you, your process, and your book when it comes to planning how you're going to consume, how you're going to take that editor feedback. That has to be a deliberate thought in your planning process. Because editor comments should be freeing. They should be empowering. They should motivate you to go back, tackle that beast, and feel empowered, feel assisted. You're not in this alone. That editor has helped you. But if you're not in the right mindset, if you're too protective, if you're not seeing clearly, you could lose that. And I don't want that for any of you. So, put that on your checklist in your writing process. What can I expect from my editor, and how will I tackle it? And while you're thinking about that, how about leaving a rating and review for this show? Those help. How about joining us at the Horrible Writing Writer Support Group on Facebook? I know you don't use Facebook. Then you're missing a great asset. And there's an earlier episode where I told you need to not be a generational writer. And if you want to help me keep this show going, become a patron. You get a whole bunch of exclusive stuff all the time. Patron levels start at $1 a month, not an episode, $1 a month, and go up from there. Thank you for everything you do for this show. Until we speak again in episode 89, keep being epic.
This has been Horrible Writing, and hopefully after this episode, you suck less than you did at the beginning. I am Paul Sadin, your host extraordinaire. You can find me over on the Twitterverse at Writing Horrible and over at paulsadin.com/horrible-writing. Until next time, suck less.